Some of you guys might think that the Plasmabow is lame or useless, but I ask you, can the Lancer do this? So let's get into what this video is about, the in-depth understanding of the Plasmabow. Firstly, let's address the elephant in the room. This gun can't deal with armor and it can't deal with traps. However, it should be noted that even if a guard is armored, they can still be killed with a well-placed shot. However, knowing when you can shoot can be a bit tricky, as the enemies already have metal and armor strapped to them. So let's go over some enemy kill zones. To start, we should understand it's only the armor mod that protects them. Anything that doesn't explicitly have armor from the armor mod is an acceptable kill zone. Let's look at some regular guards to understand the differences. So let's look at some enemies. Now we're going to start off with the Enforcer, unmodded. So any location should be an acceptable target. The Armored Enforcer only has armor covering his chest. Every other region is going to be acceptable, even the head, which is plated with metal. So the head, the gun, the legs all will be easy targets. Warmonger, no armor, easy. Any location will do. Armored Warmonger is going to be difficult. You'll be able to shoot the feet, which will be difficult, and the swords also. But your most likely targets will either be the head or the back. Looking at unarmored cannonback, any location will do, as it's unarmored. Armored cannonback has a lot of armor on it, so the easy targets that you'll be able to shoot are either going to be the head or the cannon itself. Note, even though it's metal, you should be able to shoot it because it's not armored. Hornet is probably the easiest one, as it has the smallest amount of armor in comparison to the rest of them. So you'll be able to shoot the wings, the legs, a little bit of the stomach, and the head, even though all of these have metal on them. Let's now move on to general stats. Without modification, the typical interaction speed is 0.5 seconds, but we can drop this down using the rapid fire mod to about 0.4 seconds. Though this is what the game gives us, I found speeds to be typically lower than what the game actually says. Nonetheless, using the rapid fire mod likely isn't going to be that useful, as it already stands as the highest interacting speed weapon without the mod, even beating the fully upgraded Fury's Edge. Ammo starts at 6 bolts at the beginning, next level goes to 10, and then the final level goes to 15, which is about a 150% increase from the base. These are substantial upgrades, especially in comparison with the other weapons, with the only exception being the Lancer. When it comes to gameplay, I found that even in kill boxes with lots of guards, I almost never go out and grab ammo for my crossbow, rather I'm venturing out to grab ammo for my Lancer. This is probably one of the best things for the weapon, is its ammo size. Let's move on to range. Now, while the lance in the shop says that it has the exact same range as the Plasmabow, this isn't exactly accurate, as the Lancer has a pretty distinct drop. On the other hand, the Plasmabow's range makes it hard to see any noticeable drop unless it's being used at extreme ranges. But even this can be reduced when the weapon is fully upgraded. Note in the shop that it mentions that at level 3 the bolt will move faster and is heavier, which sounds a bit worrisome because you don't want to add more drop to your bolts. However, I've noticed the opposite, that it instead makes the bolt drop less. As I've noticed, if we're using it at extreme ranges, the Plasmabow on level 2 and before is likely for the bolt to drop and hit at the bottom layer of your reticle. While if we move on to level 3, there should be minimum drop and it should still hit relatively near the center. Now, having a weapon that's really good at extreme ranges seems a bit pointless, but having a very precise weapon becomes very useful for players who are approaching bases slowly, who want to take care of enemies who are armored and at a distance. In total, this weapon can kind of be viewed as a pseudo-opposite of the Lancer. The Lancer is terrible at sniping guards, but it can deal with traps and armor. The Plasmabow, on the other hand, can be used to snipe guards from a distance, but it can't really deal with traps and armor. Most importantly, the Lancer ammo is going to be super important, and you don't want to lose it at any cost. So if a builder makes a trap that hinders you from getting it, that's going to be very dire for finishing the rest of the outpost. Likely, raiders will place themselves in danger to get their ammo back. Using the Plasmabow, you really don't need to worry about that, because that's how much ammo you have, especially if you get to level 3. I find that I use the Plasmabow to test for holocubes, because at the end of the day, I'm not worried about losing that ammo. Let's get onto the quirks of the gun, because there are 2 minor ones. First of all, while the Lancer can also do this one trick, you're more likely to do it better with the Plasmabow, and it's cheaper. It can destroy Enforcer bolts, it can destroy the Hornet and Sentinel energy balls, even the ones that can turn into AoEs, it can destroy bombs, the Iron Claw, whether it's in the air or when it's latched onto you, and it technically can destroy the arrows from a bolt shot, but that's unlikely to be useful for you. To be technical here, since it has the ability to interact with projectiles, it can destroy one trap before it fires, and that's the Iron Claw. So, how does the Plasmabow destroy the Iron Claw before it fires? Well, we certainly can't destroy it right now, but there's a third way we can destroy it. So we can destroy it when it comes at us, we can destroy it when it hooks us. The third way I said, when it triggers, that is an opening. Now, when it opens, we can't shoot anywhere. We have to shoot the projectile itself, the Iron Claw. Not the walls, the claw itself. Now this kind of makes the weapon, in a way, more useful than the sword when fighting or dealing with the Iron Claw. As we don't have to wait for the claw to come to us, we can destroy it immediately, and at the same time, we're not wasting Lancer ammo. The other quirk, this only affects the Plasmabow bolts, is that it has an unusual interaction with certain types of materials. That is, when it interacts with either metal or glass, it'll bounce multiple times instead of sticking into the wall. This might be potentially useful as it could bounce and hit an enemy, and so that might be a boon, but otherwise it's hard to see how useful this quirk is. It would be really cool to see if the developers did something with this. A mod perhaps for the bolt shot, as it would add another layer of intricacy to map making, as players or raiders would have to account for arrows bouncing off walls. Finally, let's look at playstyle. But before we get to that, we need to look over a main problem with the gun, and that is, it's very niche. Now, unless you're using an intel boost from the suit's advisor, you will not know initially if it's going to be useful for you in the raid. You can't really say that with any other weapon, as those will always have use in your first life. So it's not a good initial weapon. But that's not to say it's a bad weapon, because most of us don't make it through the first time, and we need to reevaluate our setup. Now, you can use it with anything, and certain situations do call for it, but you're likely still going to be using it with the Lancer. That's because the weapons complement each other incredibly well. Any problem the Plasmabow has, the Lancer has a solution. Any problem the Lancer has, the Plasmabow has a solution. This build is great at dealing with kill boxes, as you're able to easily destroy Iron Claws and guards with the bow, and destroy Sentinels and Incinerators with the Lancer, all at a safe and reasonable distance, with a reduced requirement of having to place yourself at risk to get your ammo back. Now that wraps up the Plasmabow video. Now I hope you learned something useful, and thanks for watching. Wow, I'm pretty sure the bolt actually can't bounce like that. It's obvious that this video has